He stood up with his wine glass and tapped the side with a spoon. The clinking cut through the voices. Laughter dimmed. Forks paused. "I've spoken to a lawyer," Evan said. "As of today, I'm the legal owner of this house." The words didn't echo. They dropped hard final. He turned toward me, didn't even flinch. "We've made the change official. This home now belongs to Sabrina and me." Denise's fingers found mine under the table. Tight. Silent. I didn't look at her. I didn't look at anyone. I stared at Evan and waited. 3. Sabrina smiled like she'd been waiting for this all night. 2. Evan lifted his glass higher as if he'd just announced a promotion. 1. Silence. No one spoke. No one asked what he meant. They didn't need to. The wine burned in my throat. I swallowed anyway. The lasagna on my plate had gone cold untouched. Someone at the far end of the table cleared their throat, tried to shift the mood, but it was no use. He said it like it was fact. Like I hadn't made the down payment. Like I hadn't lived here through his father's last winter. Like I hadn't picked out every light fixture, every drawer, pull every brick on the porch. This home, he repeated, means everything to our family. It's time the next generation took responsibility. My chair didn't creak when I shifted. I didn't slam my fork down. I didn't make a scene. I just nodded. Someone laughed awkwardly. Denise leaned closer. "You okay?" I nodded again. Inside, I was still counting. After dessert store-bought pie, Sabrina didn't bother thawing all the way they opened gifts. I'd brought a framed photo of Evan with his father taken on the back steps before the cancer set in. Sabrina didn't even unwrap it. "We're doing a minimalist look now," she said, handing it to one of her cousins. Maybe for the basement. By 9, most of them had left. Shoes clicked down the front steps. A few hugs were exchanged in the entryway, none of them mine. I stayed to help with the dishes. Sabrina handed me a sponge without a word. I didn't flinch. The plates were porcelain. I'd bought them. In the kitchen, Evan stood by the counter sipping bourbon. "Why now?" I asked, drying the last glass. He shrugged. "You've had a good run. But legally, it just makes more sense this way. Less confusion when the time comes. When what time comes. When things change. Life moves forward. You always said that, didn't you?" I folded the towel slowly. I never said bulldozing the past counts as moving forward. He didn't answer. Just poured himself another. Sabrina poked her head in. "Don't forget to lock the back door when you head out." Head out. I lived here. Or I had. I opened the fridge. My coffee creamer was gone. The shelf that used to hold my soup containers was now stacked with smoothie kits. Evan's health routine. Sabrina's color-coded labels. The guest room upstairs had become my room last month. My name wasn't on the Wi-Fi anymore. My mail had started arriving later, sometimes unopened. I walked back to the table and picked up my mug. It was empty cold. On the bottom, faded from the dishwasher, were the words, "World's Toughest Bookkeeper." No one noticed when I left the room. I moved through the hallway, past the stairwell, touched the banister I'd repainted last spring. Upstairs, the door to my old bedroom was open. Boxes lined the walls. Evan had moved the filing cabinet out. I went to the closet. The envelope was still there, tucked behind the suit jackets that no longer smelled like anyone. I scrubbed the plate harder than I needed to. The edge chipped slightly. I didn't stop. The dining room had emptied out. Shoes, coats, loud goodbyes, all gone. Only echoes remained. Sabrina leaned against the fridge, arms crossed. "You don't mind handling the rest, do you? You're always so neat." She didn't wait for a response. Just walked off heels, clicking toward the stairs. I rinsed the plate and set it on the rack. Lasagna hardened at the corners. Pie crust flaked under my fingernails. The sponge was nearly dry. I kept using it. By the time the sink emptied, the house had gone quiet. Not a peaceful quiet. A locked-out kind. I made myself a plate. Cold pasta, half a roll, a spoonful of salad. I sat at the edge of the kitchen island, not even bothering with a napkin. My own chair was gone. The cushioned one I'd always used replaced. Probably tossed or boxed. A folding metal stool waited instead. Upstairs, someone laughed. Evan. Then Sabrina. Then silence again. I chewed slowly. The food stuck in my throat. I swallowed anyway. The wedding photo was gone from the hallway. A blank wall where it had hung for 17 years. Even the rugs were different. Gray, smooth, minimalist. Nothing that held warmth. I rinsed my plate, left it on the rack. The sponge, torn and useless, dropped into the trash. I wiped the counter twice. For nothing. In the living room, a new family photo sat on the mantel. Evan and Sabrina posed at a vineyard. I wasn't in it. Neither was Michael. I reached for the light switch. Paused. The hallway light was off. The door to my room was open. A nightlight flickered faintly from inside. I walked past it. The door to Evan's office was cracked open. I heard typing. Then a soft buzz. His phone. I didn't stop. Just walked to my room. Closed the door. The overhead bulb flickered before it settled. Boxes lined the far wall. Labeled Seasonal Old Books, Misk. Mom. Not Mom's. Just Misk. I sat on the edge of the twin bed. My knees touched the box spring. The frame squeaked. The closet smelled like dust and lavender. The envelope was still there, hidden behind Michael's old suits. I slid it out slowly. My name was written on the flap in his handwriting, sharp, even strokes. I didn't open it. Not yet. I slid it back in place and shut the door. Outside, a car started. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe someone leaving for a night shift. Maybe freedom. I brushed my teeth in silence. The bathroom mirror was clean, but not mine. Sabrina's products lined the shelf. Labels faced forward. My toothbrush sat in a plastic cup wedged between cotton swabs and a pregnancy test wrapper. I dried my hands, flicked the light off. In the hallway, the thermostat blinked red. They'd set it low. 71. Too cold for an old house. Too cold for someone who didn't matter. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and listened. Upstairs, doors opened. Closed. A cabinet shut. No one came down. The house creaked once, then stopped. The heater didn't kick on. It stayed cold. I held the blanket tighter. Tomorrow, I'd check the mailbox. My name still showed on utility bills, at least last time I looked, and maybe I'd stop by the library. There was a printer there, and a scanner, and quiet tables where no one asked who owned what. The drills started before breakfast. I opened the front door to the sound of metal grinding. A van idled by the curb. The locksmith didn't look up. Evan stood beside him, arms folded, expression blank. "We're updating the locks," he said. "Insurance thing." I glanced at the hardware scattered on the porch. Brass, not bronze. Cheaper. Colder. Since when new policy? Safer this way. The locksmith kept working. Fast hands, no words. I stepped back without argument. By noon, the deadbolt was different. Smooth, unmarked, unfamiliar. Evan handed me a key. Just one. "Keep it safe," he said. "We're minimizing copies." I nodded. My fingers closed around it. Sabrina came down the stairs, phone in hand. "Make sure she knows about the alarm code." "I'll text it," Evan said, not looking at me. I didn't ask for a second key. I didn't mention the old one still on my chain. Back in the kitchen, the cabinets had been rearranged. My coffee tin was gone. A glass jar, labeled decaf only, sat where it used to be. Sabrina's label maker had made it official. I boiled water and drank it plain. By afternoon, the spare key they'd given me sat untouched in my drawer. I didn't test the lock. I didn't want to know if the old key still worked. Later, Denise called. I kept my voice light. "They changed the locks," I said, as if it were normal. A pause. Then Marlene, "Do you want me to come by?" "No," I said. "Not yet." The sun dipped. The house went still. Sabrina hosted a video call in the dining room. Her voice rose in careful tones. Client talk, real estate pitch. Evan paced behind her, checking his email. I walked the perimeter. Garage locked. Side gate bolted. I tried the back door. The handle was cool, stiff, but it turned. Still unlocked for now. In the hallway, I noticed a frame was missing. The photo of Michael with his brothers gone. A new print hung in its place. Abstract grayscale empty. I opened the hall closet. Coats had been shuffled. Mine pushed to the back under a space heater. I took the envelope from the bedroom and slid it deeper behind the jackets. Then I zipped one of Michael's old coats halfway and tucked the flap beneath the lining. Dinner was store-bought again. Quinoa salad. Sabrina handed me a plate without a fork. I ate standing near the sink. Don't forget to lock up, Evan said, rinsing his own dish. We don't want anyone wandering in. Anyone. I nodded, dried my hands, took the plate to my room. That night I walked to the back door and tried the knob again. Still unlocked. I stood there, hand resting on the cool metal, then slid the bolt into place. The click was soft. Final. Upstairs, water ran. Sabrina's voice moved through the vents, then faded. I sat at my desk and opened my notebook. Dated the top corner. Wrote one line, lock changed. One key given. One removed. Then I turned the page and wrote, check mailbox. Check title. Check Marcus. The pen didn't shake. My hand didn't pause. The drawer closed clean. I opened the closet and the boxes were gone. The ones labeled Michael, winter coats, tools, old photos, 1982, 1999, all of them. Cleared out. Only hangers remained, some still swinging. I checked under the bed. Empty. The cedar chest had been pushed against the wall, unlocked lighter than I remembered. Sabrina passed by the doorway with a laundry basket. We needed the space, she said, without looking in. We've got guests coming next weekend. She meant her cousin and the boyfriend. Portland people. Never met Michael. Wouldn't ask where he'd gone. I closed the closet slowly. The air inside still smelled faintly of his aftershave. In the hallway, the linen cabinet door stood open. Neatly stacked towels, color-coded. Mine weren't there. I found them in the bottom drawer of the bathroom, crammed, musty. One had mildew stains. I took it anyway. Downstairs, a framed photo lay face down in the drawer beneath the bookshelf. The one from our wedding day. I didn't ask who moved it. I didn't flip it back. Sabrina had replaced the bookshelf with a white console, clean lines, no handles. It held candles, a wire fruit basket, and a plant she'd already forgotten to water. Evan came home late. He dropped his keys on the counter, didn't see me sitting at the table. I cleared the rest of Mom's stuff, Sabrina said. It's either in the garage or gone. He grunted. As long as it's out of the way. I stood. Out of whose way, he blinked. It's just for now. We're trying to keep things organized. She means staged, I said. Sabrina leaned on the counter. No offense, Marlene. Some of those things were dated. Dated. Not hers. Not welcome. I left the room, walked past the new artwork in the hall, blurry photographs of water and fog. Cold. Forgettable. Back in the guest room, the comforter had changed again. Gray, thin, unwashed. It smelled like packaging. I opened my drawer. My notebook was still there. I added a line. Boxes gone. Closet empty. Wedding photo moved. I stared at the line, then underlined it. That night, I sat at the desk and opened the envelope from behind Michael's coat. Inside the addendum, the clause, his signature. A notarized stamp dated 15 months before he passed. I read it 3 times. In the event of contested transfer or attempt to override ownership via dependent parties, all authority reverts to surviving spouse, designated here as Marlene M. Dwyer, sole trustee of the remaining estate. No fancy language, just clear terms. His handwriting, neat, deliberate, ran beside the witness line. I folded it back slowly. The next morning, I checked the garage. A few boxes sat in the far corner unmarked. I opened one sweater's. Michael's. Another held his tools. The third was empty damp, the label peeling. I resealed them. No one saw me. The trash bins had been rolled to the curb. I lifted the lid on the black one. Inside, buried under takeout containers and Amazon wrap, was a photo album. Leather cover. Corner bent. Pages stuck together from a spilled bottle of something sweet. I took it out, wiped it with my sleeve, and tucked it under my coat. Back inside, I made coffee. Black. No creamer left. Sabrina walked past and wrinkled her nose. "You know caffeine's not great for your joints, right?" I didn't answer, just sipped slowly. She left the kitchen. Her phone rang upstairs. Laughter followed. I sat down, opened the album, and peeled back the first page. Michael smiled up at me from a camping trip in '84 flannel shirt, arms wide, fire crackling behind him. The edges blurred, but he looked solid. Still here. Later I'd head to the library, but first I'd finish the page. I saw it the moment I walked in. A manila folder lay open on the kitchen counter, papers fanned like a deck of cards. Evan's handwriting in blue ink across the tab, property transfer, final. I set my grocery bag down and slid the top page free. My name stared back at me in bold. Grantor Marlene M. Dwyer. Below, a shaky version of my signature, too neat, too slow, like someone had practiced until they could mimic my hand. I ran my thumb over the ink. Not embossed, not wet. Printed. The date read 3 weeks ago. A notary stamp from a bank branch I'd never visited. My stomach clenched. I looked at the other page's witness lines, Sabrina's name typed cleanly, Evans scribbled below. A closing date scheduled for 2 weeks out. I heard footsteps overhead. A door closing. Laughter muffled by drywall. I slid the papers back into the folder and closed it. My pulse hammered. The smell of coffee grounds clung to the sink. Their mugs sat half empty on the counter. I opened the drawer under the microwave, pulled out a plain envelope, and slipped the entire folder inside. My hands didn't shake. I pushed it deep behind the cookbooks. I stood there, palms flat on the counter, breathing through my nose until the dizziness passed. It wasn't shock anymore. It was calculation. Evan came down the stairs, phone in hand, scrolling. "You didn't see a folder here, did you?" "No," I said. He looked up briefly. "We're finalizing some things, just making sure paperwork doesn't get misplaced." "Paperwork," I repeated. Sabrina called from upstairs. "Evan, the realtor's on the line." He slipped the phone back into his pocket and went up. I waited until the house was quiet again. I took the envelope from behind the cookbooks and slid it under my sweater. Walked down the hallway to the guest room, shut the door, locked it with the flimsy interior latch. I pulled out my notebook and added a new line. Found forged transfer papers. Closing date 2 weeks. Underneath it I wrote, "Check bank stamp. Call Marcus." I tucked the envelope beneath the mattress between the springs and the frame. From the hallway came Sabrina's voice. "Did you lock the back door?" I didn't answer. I sat on the bed, staring at the blank wall where my wedding photo used to hang. My fingers pressed the page until the pen tore through the paper. They thought I would crumble. They thought I would sign by silence. I flipped to a clean page and wrote one more line. "Begin copy process tomorrow." Outside, a car started. Tires hissed against wet pavement. I slipped the notebook into my bag and zipped it shut. The next morning, I would walk to the library. There was a scanner there and a printer, and quiet tables, where no one asked whose name was on the deed. I opened the front door and almost collided with Mr. Layton. He held a stack of his male eyes darting past me toward the house. "You've got people coming and going," he said. "Everything okay?" I stepped onto the porch. "What people?" He adjusted his cap. "Couple days ago, woman with a camera clipboard." Looked like a real estate agent. Took pictures of your front yard windows, even the mailbox. Said she was here for a quick sale listing. My grip tightened on the doorframe. She said that. Yeah. Thought you'd be moving. Figured you'd already told me. He lowered his voice. She was taking interior shots, too. Evan let her in. I forced a nod. Thank you for telling me. He hesitated. You okay, Marlene? I'm fine, I said. Really? He gave me a look I couldn't read, then walked back across the lawn. His footsteps faded on the sidewalk. I closed the door and leaned against it. The wood felt cold through my sweater. My stomach rolled. Inside, the house smelled faintly of air freshener Sabrina's citrus spray, masking something stale. The living room blinds were tilted, letting in thin lines of light. The rug's edges curled where boxes had been dragged across it. I went straight to the guest room, pulled the envelope from under the mattress, laid the forged transfer papers out on the desk, smoothing the creases. The date of the closing circled back at me 2 weeks. I added Mr. Layton's words to my notebook. Neighbor saw agent photographing house. Evan let her in. Quick sale. I stared at the line until the ink blurred. My name was still on the deed, but photos meant a listing. A listing meant buyers. Buyers meant contracts. The ground felt like it was tilting. I picked up the phone and dialed Denise. She didn't answer. I hung up without leaving a message. I went to the kitchen. The folder of mortgage statements was gone from the drawer. Sabrina's smoothie jars lined the counter like trophies. My mug was in the sink, cracked at the lip. I poured water from the kettle into an empty glass and drank it. No taste. In the hallway, Evan's shoes were lined neatly by the wall. His tie hung over the banister. Upstairs, water ran a shower. They were home. I opened the back door quietly, looked at the yard. The grass was still damp where tripods had stood, small indentations in the soil like footprints. I closed the door, bolted it, and went back to the desk. I pulled the addendum from the second envelope, the clause my husband had left. Ran my finger over the stamp. The paper felt solid, heavier than the forged ones. I copied the closing date from the forged deed onto the margin of the addendum. Then I wrote, "Call Marcus. Bring papers." The pen dug into the paper hard enough to leave a groove. Upstairs, the shower shut off. Voices moved. Sabrina laughed, low and sharp. I slid the papers back into the envelope and zipped it into my bag. My fingers brushed against Michael's old coat, still hanging in the closet. The lining hid the second set of copies. I checked my watch. The library would still be open for another hour. I picked up my bag and slipped out the side door, locking it behind me. I climbed into the attic before sunrise. The pull-down stairs creaked under my weight. I moved slow, careful not to wake the house. My flashlight cut through the dust. Boxes lined the eaves. Holiday decor tax folders, a plastic bin labeled winter gloves. I pushed them aside, reached behind an old suitcase, and felt it cold, square metal. Michael's lockbox. I carried it down, set it on the guest room floor, and popped the latch. Inside, a Ziploc bag of keys, a watch that hadn't ticked in years, and a folder wrapped in plastic. I peeled it open. Mortgage origin file. Dwyer Home. Every page intact. Deed of sale, purchase agreement, loan documents. My name listed first, his second. Not Evan's, not Sabrina's. Just us. I ran my fingers over the embossed notary seal. Not printed. Real. I didn't cry. I made copies. By 8:15, I was at the library. Same corner table near the back. I fed the pages into the scanner one by one. The machine hummed low and steady. Each page came out clean. No redactions. No edits. No lies. I saved them twice USB in cloud. Then I made hard copies, folded them into a manila envelope, and slipped it into my bag. The librarian smiled as I passed. I nodded, but said nothing. My hands smelled like old paper. Outside, the wind had picked up. I zipped my jacket to the top and walked home the long way past the school, the fire station, the small bakery where Michael used to buy me the wrong cookies on purpose. When I got back, Sabrina was standing on the porch in workout clothes, checking her phone. "You've been out early?" she said. "Library," I replied. "For what?" I smiled. "Records." She blinked, then turned away. "We're repainting the guest room next week, just so you know." I nodded and went inside. In the hallway, Evan sat at the dining table with his laptop. He didn't look up. Sabrina followed me into the kitchen. "If you have any boxes you want to move to the garage, now's a good time." I opened the fridge. My milk was gone. In its place, a glass pitcher with a green juice label. "I'll let you know," I said. I went to the guest room and closed the door, locked it, sat at the desk. I slid the fresh documents under the mattress, right beside the forged ones. Side by side, truth and imitation. In my notebook, I wrote attic original file located, all documents clean, my name only. Copies complete. I turned the page. Next, contact Marcus. Confirm clause. I paused, then added, prepare timeline. Include forged papers, photo album, lock change, neighbors visit, bank call, false listing. I capped the pen. Upstairs, a door slammed. Voices followed. I pulled Michael's coat from the closet and placed the USB drive in the inner pocket. I stood there, a long-time coat in one hand, bag in the other, waiting for the house to quiet. I put the folder on the kitchen table. No build-up. No warning. Evan glanced up from his laptop. "What's this?" "Read it," I said. He opened it, halfway flipped through the top 2 pages, then leaned back in his chair. "Marlene, where did you get these?" "The attic. The original loan file. My name's on every page. Michael's too. No one else." Sabrina walked in. Phone in hand, stopped when she saw the folder. "You dug that up?" she asked. I didn't answer. I kept my eyes on Evan. He sighed. "Okay, yes, but this isn't what you think it is. I think it's evidence. I think you forged a deed with my name on it and filed a transfer without consent." He smiled. Not kind. Not sorry. "You wouldn't understand, Mom. Real estate's different now. Titles shift all the time. It's cleaner if we handle things now before the taxes hit." "Handle," I repeated. Sabrina stepped closer. "We can't afford mistakes right now." He turned to her. "Sabrina." But she didn't stop. "It's not personal. We've invested a lot. Our savings, our time. This isn't about you. It's not about me," I said. "It's my name, my deed, my home." Evan closed the folder and slid it back toward me. "Legally, we're still within range. The bank hasn't finalized the change, and the notary I cut in was fake." He paused. I kept going. "And if you think I won't fight this, you're wrong." His smile dropped. Sabrina looked between us, her arms crossed tighter. "You're being dramatic," she said. I stood there. No yelling, no tears, just facts. "You lied to me," I said to Evan. "You used my name without consent. Forged my signature, brought a real estate agent here, and acted like I was invisible." He shook his head. "This was supposed to be simple." "For you," I said. Sabrina folded her arms. "You don't need this house. You're retired. We're growing a family. This place should belong to people who actually use it." The words hit like a slap. I picked up the folder, slid it back into my bag. Evan leaned forward. "Look, if we all just calm down." "No," I said. "I've been calm long enough." I turned and walked out of the room. My hand didn't shake when I zipped the bag closed. In the hallway, the photo of Michael was gone again, replaced by a mirror. I didn't stop. I kept walking. Up the stairs, down the hall, into the guest room. I closed the door behind me and locked it. My notebook waited on the desk. I sat, opened it, and wrote, "Confrontation failed. They don't care." Sabrina said, "We can't afford mistakes." Then, mistakes at years me. Or the paperwork, I put the pen down, sat back, and let the room settle. The house creaked. A drawer opened in the kitchen. Sabrina's voice low and fast. Evan replied. I didn't catch the words. I reached for the folder and removed the forged deed. I marked the corner with a red tab and slid it into a new envelope labeled, For Marcus. Copy 1. Outside, the wind picked up again. Leaves scratched against the siding. I placed the envelope next to my bag and opened the window just enough to let the cold air in. I dialed the number before the kettle finished boiling. Blocked caller ID. Just in case. Good morning, this is Carrie from Haverly Bank. How can I help you today? I cleared my throat. Hi, I'm looking at a listing on Westview Drive. Just wanted to confirm if the title transfer went through, she typed. I could hear its short, quick bursts. Address, I gave it. Do you have a buyer's rep or just inquiring independently? Independently, I said. I'm considering placing an offer, but want to confirm status first. Another pause. There is a transfer request in progress, but it hasn't closed. No signatures on file from a verified notary yet. My pen scratched across the notebook. Is the new name listed yet? Not officially. Application lists. Evan Dwyer is grantee, but the ownership's still legally under Marlene Dwyer. And there's no final record, no ma'am, she said. As of now, nothing's filed at the county level. Paperwork's incomplete. My chest tightened. Would you like us to notify you if it changes? No, thank you. I ended the call. The kettle clicked off. I poured the water, forgot the coffee, left it to cool on the counter. Evan had lied. Sabrina had lied. Even to themselves. They were walking around like they'd won, but nothing had closed. Nothing was legal. I walked to the dining room. Evan's laptop sat open. I didn't touch it. A spreadsheet blinked on the screen. Numbers. Columns. Estimated value of the house. Projected closing costs. His initials next to each figure. I stepped back. Sabrina's voice floated down the stairs. I told him to call the agent again. She wants to relist if we don't move faster. I walked to the front door and opened it. The lock clicked, unfamiliar, but the weight in my hand, the key I'd kept, still worked. I stepped outside. Sat on the porch. The wind had turned sharp. Leaves skipped across the steps like warnings. I pulled out my notebook. Bank confirmed, transfer not finalized. Ownership. Still me. Then next move is mine. I closed the book, stood and walked around to the side gate. The latch was stiff. I pushed it open and stepped into the yard. The grass had gone yellow near the fence. Dead patches spread like bruises. Near the back corner, the realtor's sign still leaned behind the trash bins. Unplanted. Hidden. They were getting ready. Fast. Quiet. Without telling me. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus. Straight to voicemail. I left a message. It's Marlene Dwyer. I need to meet. I have everything. It's urgent. I hung up and walked back inside. Sabrina stood in the hallway, arms crossed. Out for a stroll, fresh air, I said. You should try it. She didn't move. Just watched me as I passed. In the guest room, I opened the drawer and pulled out the latest file. I made a second copy of the addendum, stapled it to the bank confirmation note, and labeled the folder, Hold Until Contact. Legal. Then I tucked it under the lining of Michael's coat. Upstairs, the sound of footsteps shifted. Evan was pacing. Doors opened. Closed. Something was happening faster than before. I zipped my bag, slid the folder inside, and turned toward the window. The sun had dropped behind the neighbor's trees, and the house cast a long shadow across the grass. I pried open the bottom drawer of Michael's desk. The rails stuck. The wood swelled with years of dust and forgotten paper. I yanked harder. It gave. Inside, scattered receipts, rubber bands, an old calculator brittle with age. And at the back, one envelope. Sealed. Heavy. His handwriting covered the front in black ink. To be opened by Marlene Dwyer only. I sat down. broke the seal, and pulled out the papers. The first page stopped me cold. Addendum to Estate Trust, Section 4C notarized, dated, stamped. It was real. The clause was clear. If any transfer or legal modification regarding the house occurred without her direct and written approval, the surviving spouse me retained full authority to revoke or block the transaction. It was tied to Michael's trust, buried under a clause Evan had likely never seen. I turned the second page. Typed neatly at the bottom. Authorized Counsel of Record Marcus Heller, retired. Contact via private line. A phone number followed. My heart thudded steady and strong. I flipped back to the signature. Michael's inked initials followed by mine from a day I vaguely remembered but hadn't thought about since the funeral. The lawyer had come to the house. Quiet kind. Said we'd added just-in-case measures. I didn't think we'd ever need them. Now, here they were. I added a line to my notebook. Located Clause 4C. Trust override confirmed. Contact Marcus. I took a photo of the document, then slid it into the folder marked Legal, Private. Taped the flap shut. Wrote the date on the outside. Downstairs, the front door opened. Footsteps. The familiar click of Sabrina's boots. I slipped the folder into the gap behind the bookshelf between the wall and the floorboards. Covered it with a stack of old magazines. Evan called from the kitchen. You want anything from the store? I walked out. No, I'm fine. Sabrina glanced at my bag. Her eyes narrowed. You going somewhere, library? Again, I didn't answer. Evan jingled his keys. Don't forget, we have the finance guy calling tonight. I nodded. I won't forget. They left. Car pulled out. Silence returned. I picked up the house phone landline still active, dialed the number. 3 rings. Then a gravelly voice answered. Heller. Marcus. It's Marlene Dwyer. A pause. Well, I'll be damned. How long's it been I found the clause? You kept the desk, he said. I told Michael you would. I didn't smile. I need to activate it. The house? They forged my name. Tried to push a transfer through. It's not finalized yet. His voice sharpened. Do you have the original? Yes. Copy it. Get it to me. In person? No email? No scans? I have hard copies. I'll bring them. He gave me an address, quiet town, an hour west. Retired law office now used twice a month for select clients. You'll want to move fast, he said. Clause 4C holds, but only if you invoke it before county records go final. I understand. Bring everything. I'll do the rest. I hung up, pulled the coat from the closet, checked the pocket. The USB was still there. I grabbed the folder, checked each page again. Then I reached for Michael's old briefcase, brushed off the dust, and packed it. The latch clicked shut, firm and final. I slid the briefcase across the cafe table. Marcus Heller didn't waste time. He flipped it open, scanned the documents, tapped the corner of the addendum with one finger, then nodded. This is good, he said. Really good. The place smelled of burnt espresso and lemon cleaner. Downtown. Quiet. One barista. 3 customers all facing laptops. No one looked at us. He pulled out the clause and read it again, slower this time. Your husband did this right. It's airtight. You didn't sign anything after he passed nothing I said. He tapped the folder again. Then they've got nothing. At best, they tried to strong-arm you. At worst, it's fraud. He pushed the paper back toward me. You still live there, for now. Keep it that way. I nodded. My coffee sat untouched. The mug was chipped. I didn't care. I need to know what to do next, I said. He leaned back. You don't do anything. Not yet. I stared at him. They think they've won, he continued. Let them think it. Let them keep making mistakes. I didn't speak, he added. The moment you show your hand, they'll stall. Hide things. Lawyer up. Right now, they're arrogant. That's good. I folded the clause back into the folder. How long do I wait? He smiled faintly. until they sign something dumb. I sat with that, let it settle. I want it back. The house. I want everything reversed. You will, he said. This clause gives you the right to freeze any sale. Once they finalize a fraudulent transfer, it becomes actionable. And Evan, he forged a document under your name. He's liable, but only if we can prove it. That means letting him hang himself first. I sipped the coffee. Bitter, strong. It settled in my throat like warning. Marcus checked his watch. I'll file a notice with the county clerk. Quiet hold, no public trail. That'll stall any closing attempt for a few weeks without alerting them. I looked out the window. A man passed with his dog. A school bus turned the corner. When this is over, I said I want them out. You'll get more than that, he said. I didn't ask what he meant. We shook hands. His grip was still firm. Years hadn't softened him. I walked back toward the station briefcase in hand coat zipped up to my throat. The wind had picked up. Dry leaves spun in small circles at my feet. At home, the porch light was on. Sabrina's car in the driveway. Evan's too. I didn't go inside right away. I walked around to the back, past the yard, past the shed to the garden bed Michael had built before his last surgery. It was overgrown now. Dry roots cracked earth, the trellis half collapsed. I knelt down and pulled up a piece of twine snapped from weather and time. Then I stood, brushed the dirt from my knees, and went through the back door. I waited until the house slept. No lights, no footsteps, just the low hum of the fridge and the heater kicking on every few minutes. I stepped barefoot down the hall, avoiding the spots that creaked. Evan's office door was slightly ajar. Inside, the laptop glowed. Screensaver still running. I moved fast. Mouse click. Password screen. I typed the birthday I knew he used for everything. Sabrina's, not mine. It worked. The desktop loaded slow, too many windows open. I ignored them. I went to the email tab. Clicked. A folder named RE Westview Closing sat near the top. Unread messages stacked below it. I opened the most recent one. From broker Gina LTPropertyGroup.com. Subject: need all signatures by Thursday. To meet new buyer timeline. Still need final doc from the original owner. If she refuses, you'll need to assert prior approval. Attached PDF. Titled, Transfer Package V3 Final PDF. I clicked it open. Page 1, purchase price. Too low. Page 2, Evan's name listed as seller. Page 3, Sabrina's signature on the witness line. Page 4, my name. A copy-paste of my signature from an earlier document tilted slightly jagged, but familiar enough to fool anyone who didn't know better. I took out my phone. Snapped photo after photo. Every page. Zoomed in on the date stamps, the metadata footers. Then I clicked back through the thread. Weeks of messages. Gina asking for updates. Evan assuring her everything was handled. One message from Sabrina stood out. She's old school. She won't check county records. Just keep the pressure low. Another will get the deed signed. One way or another. I snapped each one. Last thread showed a draft closing date 5 days from now. I copied the date into my notebook right there at his desk. My hand didn't shake. Behind me, the house creaked. I froze. No voices, no movement. Just the walls settling. I backed out of the emails, cleared the history, and set the mouse right where it had been. I shut the door behind me. In the guest room, I slid the phone into the charger, opened the photos, and backed them up twice, cloud and external drive. Then I printed every page at the library the next morning early. No one noticed. I wore a coat, sunglasses, walked slow, paid cash for the paper. At home, I slid the stack into Michael's old ledger. The binding cracked just enough to hold the pages tight. I didn't tell Marcus yet. I wanted more. At dinner, Sabrina mentioned a showing next week for a friend she claimed. Someone just curious. Evan didn't speak. He didn't have to. His silence was louder now. I washed the dishes. She dried. Her phone buzzed 3 times. She didn't answer. After they went upstairs, I opened the bottom drawer of the china cabinet. I took out the house photo they'd buried under napkins and menus. The one we'd taken the week we moved in before the porch was rebuilt, before Michael got sick. I placed it upright on the dining room shelf. No one said anything the next morning, but Sabrina turned it face down again before lunch. I turned it back. I opened the kitchen blinds and saw the cars pulling in. 2 SUVs, 1 sedan. All new, all clean. Plates from 2 counties over. Evan stood on the porch, straightening his collar. Sabrina hovered behind him, clipboard in hand, phone pressed to her ear. I stayed inside. The doorbell rang. Voices filtered through. Right this way. 3-bedroom original hardwoods. Completely move-in, ready. I wiped my hands on the dish towel and stepped into the hallway. They didn't see me. He walked them through the living room, pointing at the molding like it was his name etched into the frame. The paperwork's all but done, he said. We're just tying off final signatures. Won't be long now. Sabrina nodded along. We've had interest from out of state too. One of the buyers' tall early 40s leather shoes pointed at the photo on the dining room shelf. And the current owner, Evan, blinked. Well, it's a family property. Transitioning now, I stepped forward just enough to be seen from the kitchen doorway. I'm here, I said. The man turned, confused. Sorry, I'm the owner, I said again. Calm. And I'm standing in my own house. Sabrina froze. Evan's face dropped a shade. The buyer cleared his throat. I wasn't aware you weren't supposed to be, I said. Apparently. Evan forced a chuckle. It's fine. She's just... I've seen the listings I cut in. I've seen the documents. The ones with my forged signature. The second buyer shifted her purse to the other shoulder. Is there a dispute? There's a trust clause, I said. Filed, notarized, and active. No property transfer without my consent. Which no one asked for. The woman turned to Evan. You didn't mention any of that. Sabrina stepped forward. We didn't think it was relevant. I raised an eyebrow. Then you thought wrong. The man nodded, once lips tight. We'll need to discuss. He turned to the other buyer. Let's go. They left. Evan didn't move. His face flushed deep, then paled. Sabrina grabbed the clipboard and muttered, We'll reschedule. They shut the door hard behind them. I walked back to the kitchen, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, and sat at the table. The mug was chipped. Still mine. Footsteps came fast down the hall. Evan's voice, sharp. What are you doing? What I should have done weeks ago. You embarrassed me, he snapped. You tried to erase me. Sabrina hovered behind him. We're trying to build something. You've had your time in this house. This house, I said, has my name on the deed, the trust in the mailbox. What do you have? An agent and a shortcut. Evan didn't answer. I took a slow sip of coffee. The silence stretched. Finally, I stood, walked past them both, and went upstairs. In the guest room, I opened the drawer and checked the files again. All there. Then I opened the window halfway and let the cold air spill in. The house needed to breathe. I packed the envelope before dawn. One for Marcus. One for the bank. One sealed tight in a folder marked Final for the safety deposit box. I left before they woke. No goodbye. No note. The bus downtown was nearly empty. The banker's office opened first. I handed over the documents in a plastic sleeve original trust clause, forged signature evidence photos of the open house. The clerk asked no questions, just took the file and nodded. Next, the post office. I mailed the second set to Marcus registered signature required. I watched the clerk stamp the receipt, pressed hard enough to leave an imprint through the envelope. Last stop, the bank vault. I signed the form, opened the box, placed the third set inside, laid the folder flat-centered, closed the lid. Steel door shut. Key turned. Done. By 11 a.m., I was back at the house. It looked the same. Same rug by the door. Same fake fern in the hallway. But something had shifted. I walked past Evan, who stood near the window on a call. His voice dropped when he saw me. Sabrina stood in the kitchen staring at a piece of paper in her hand. I didn't ask. I didn't wait. I went to the guest room, locked the door behind me, opened the ledger, everything still in place. I added a line to the notebook. Legal copies delivered. House frozen. No sale possible. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited. Waited for something to crack. Downstairs, Evan raised his voice. I couldn't hear the words, just the rhythm. Sabrina answered sharp and low. A door slammed. The walls shook. I walked back down calmly. Neither of them looked at me. At dinner, Sabrina made salad. Didn't offer me any. Evan poured himself a drink and stared out the window like he expected the sky to explain itself. No one spoke. I ate what I'd cooked, quiet, plain mine. When I cleared my plate, I placed my mug back on the shelf. Same chipped one I always used. They watched, but didn't say a word. Later that night, I heard their bedroom door open. Whispers. Then footsteps down the stairs. I stood at the top and listened. "We don't have time," Sabrina hissed. "She's stalling." "No, she's blocking." A pause. Then Evan lower. "She knows. She's got something." I turned back to my room, shut the door gently, and sat at the desk. I opened the notebook to a clean page. They finally feel the lock. I set the table without being asked. Same plates, same glasses, same cloth. Napkins folded tight, like nothing had changed. But the air felt different. Tighter. Meaner. They came down, dressed like it mattered. Evan in a pressed shirt, Sabrina in soft beige hair, smoothed and pinned. We sat. Sabrina poured the wine. Evan cleared his throat. "Let's just say it," he started. "The sale's complete." He looked at me when he said it. Like a dare. Sabrina smiled small, like a secret had finally been unwrapped. "We signed the closing packet yesterday." I chewed once. Swallowed. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. Placed it in the center of the table. No words. Evan frowned. "What's this?" I didn't speak. He opened it. First page, Clause 4C signed and notarized. Second photo of the forged signature, his version versus mine. Third copy of the real estate agent's email admitting knowledge of buyer pressure. Fourth, notarized letter from Marcus confirming the trust override and legal freeze. The fifth county clerk hold receipt. The sixth notice of pending fraud review. He stopped turning pages. Sabrina leaned over, read one line, went still. The room shrank. I poured myself water, took a slow sip. Evan's voice came out tight. "Where did you get this?" I looked at him. "From my husband. From the attorney who helped him protect this house. From the bank. From you when you left your laptop open." Sabrina shoved her chair back. "You were spying. I was living here," I said, "and watching." Evan's hands trembled slightly. "We didn't mean for it to—" "You meant to sell what wasn't yours," I said. "You meant to erase me." He closed the folder, pushed it an inch away like it might burn him. Sabrina crossed her arms. "So, what now?" I stood. Picked up the folder. Now nothing moves. No sale, no signatures, no transfer. You tried to bury the truth. I dug it up. No one moved. I carried the folder back to my room, closed the door, sat at the desk. Outside, their voices broke apart. Sharp clipped, frantic. I opened the notebook. Wrote, "Second dinner. End of performance. Truth. Loud enough. Then, they know I'm not leaving." I looked out the window. The porch light flickered. The wind pushed against the glass like it wanted in. I opened the door before they could knock twice. 2 men from the bank. 1 woman from the county fraud unit. Badges, clipboards, eyes scanning everything. Mrs. Dwyer, the woman asked. Yes, I said. Come in. They stepped past me into the living room. Evan stood by the window, pale. Sabrina sat stiff on the couch, arms crossed, phone clutched, but silent. The woman set a slim recorder on the table. This is a preliminary inquiry. We'll be confirming signatures and chain of custody. I stayed standing. They didn't ask me to sit. They didn't need to. The first man unfolded a document, the forged deed. Mr. Dwyer? Did you sign this? Evan cleared his throat. Yes, but... And did you obtain your mother's signature? She gave consent verbally. The woman turned to me. Did you? No, I said. Her pen moved, fast, precise. They asked for Sabrina's ID next. She handed it over with a snap. I was just a witness, she said. Evan handled everything. The second man slid a page across. Your signature. Mrs. Blake. Sabrina glanced at the line, blinked. Yes. He circled the name. This signature matches 2 others on notarized statements filed with the closing packet. Both forged. Sabrina shifted. That's impossible. The woman spoke again, voice flat. We've already verified through the notary. He has no record of meeting Mrs. Dwyer. This transaction cannot proceed. Silence. The house felt smaller. I watched Evan's jaw tighten, his hands flex. He started to speak, stopped. He looked at me, then away. The first man closed his folder. Mrs. Dwyer, at this time there's no action required on your part. Ownership remains solely under your name. We're placing a hold and notifying county records. Any future transfer attempts will flag automatically. I nodded once. They asked me to initial a receipt confirming they'd been here. Not a signature, just initials. I did it slow neat. They gathered their papers. The woman gave me a card. If you receive any new notices or if someone tries to enter on behalf of a buyer, call this number. I slipped it into my pocket. Evan finally spoke, voice low. You didn't have to do this. I met his eyes. You did. Sabrina stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We were trying to help you. The woman cut her off. You can discuss intent with your counsel. We're finished here for now. They left through the front door, quiet. The car engine started faded. The house stayed silent. Evan sank into the chair, head in his hands. Sabrina paced, muttering under her breath, then stormed upstairs. A door slammed hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. I stayed in the living room, hands on the back of a chair, watching the dust settle in the light from the window. For the first time in months, no one was telling me where to sit. No one was calling me a guest. No one was speaking over me. I walked to the kitchen, poured coffee from the pot I'd brewed an hour ago. It was still warm enough. In the hallway, Evan's footsteps dragged up the stairs. A second door closed. I took a sip, set the mug down, and reached for my notebook. I heard them, before I saw them. Boxes scraping across the floor. Doors flung open, drawers yanked too hard. No warning, no conversation. Sabrina stomped through the hallway with her arms full of coats, threw them into the trunk of her SUV, and slammed it shut without looking back. Evan followed, carrying electronics and a dented suitcase. Neither of them said a word to me. I stood at the top of the stairs and watched. They didn't ask for help. Didn't offer explanations. They just packed. The bedroom door swung open and shut over and over. The closet emptied. Shelves cleared. My books shoved aside to make room for whatever they still thought was theirs. A lamp clattered. Glass broke. No one picked it up. I stayed upstairs. They moved fast. Not careful. They didn't clean. Didn't check drawers. They wanted out, not closure. Sabrina grabbed the framed print from the hallway. The one I'd bought in Maine years ago, dropped it on the floor when it slipped. The glass shattered. She left it there. Evan unplugged the TV, left the cords tangled behind him. The cabinet drawers hung open like mouths. In the kitchen, cabinet doors slammed shut. Sabrina's voice rose, once sharp, impatient. A box of spices tipped, scattered across the counter. I didn't move. The pantry door creaked open, then closed. Hard. They were gone by sundown. No goodbye, no final word. Just a last trip to the trunk, and then the slam of both car doors. Engines turned, tires crunched over the gravel. I stood by the living room window and watched the cars pull out one after the other. The wind caught a flyer from the back seat and sent it tumbling down the driveway. Evan didn't notice. Sabrina didn't care. I stayed at the window until the taillights disappeared. Then I walked through the house. The guest room was empty. The mattress still in place, but no sheets. No framed photos. The closet hung open. One wire hanger dangled swinging slightly. The office reeked of old coffee. Evan had left his mug half full on the desk. Mold had started along the rim. A drawer was open. Papers scattered. Bills. Bank letters. One final notice from the utility company, unpaid. The hallway mirror leaned against the wall, cracked through the middle. Sabrina's nail polish bottle rolled beneath the radiator. I opened the front closet. Nothing but dust and a crumpled scarf. No sound. Just floorboards and my own breath. I walked to the kitchen, turned on the light. The bulb flickered, then steadied. They'd taken all the snacks. Left 2 cracked plates and 1 sticky wine glass in the sink. I filled the kettle. Let it boil. The photo frame they'd turned down 100 times still stood on the shelf. I straightened it. Michael smiled from behind the glass. Still here, still steady. I wiped the counters. Closed the drawers. Shut the doors. The house was mine again. Bare. Quiet. Mine. I opened the door with damp hands, towel still slung over my shoulder. Mr. Layton stood there, holding a small bundle of lilies wrapped in newspaper. They left, he asked. I nodded. He offered the flowers without another word. I took them. His hands were colder than the breeze. Just thought you might want something new on the windowsill, he said. Thank you, I said. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He glanced over my shoulder at the hallway behind me. Place looks quiet again. It is. He nodded. You kept what was yours. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside so he could see the light from the kitchen window spill across the floor. He didn't come in. Just nodded again, softer this time, and turned to go. I closed the door gently. The vase was in the cabinet above the fridge. A little chipped near the rim. Michael had given it to me after our 5th anniversary. I rinsed it clean, filled it with water, and lowered the stems inside. The lilies bent just enough to catch the sun. I placed it on the sill. Adjusted it slightly. Let the glass find its balance on the old wood. The air smelled like wood polish and coffee again. Not perfume, not wine, just home. I lit a match. Burned the leftover paper scraps they'd left behind. Sabrina's shopping list. Evan's scribbled to-do sheet. Crumpled. Gone. The trash was empty. The fridge half full. The cabinets thin but honest. I cleaned what was left. Wiped the handles. Polished the dining table until the grain showed again. I brewed new coffee. Not for anyone. Not out of habit. Just because the scent belonged here. I poured a cup, carried it to the living room, and sat on the far end of the couch where I used to read before they moved in. The silence didn't ache. It breathed. Outside, the breeze lifted one of the porch flyers Evan had dropped. I watched it roll down the steps and catch under the hedge. I didn't move to pick it up. I drank half the cup before setting it on the table. No coaster. No correction. The ring it left behind was mine to wipe or not. I stood, walked down the hallway, and opened the door to what had been the guest room. The air inside had shifted. No perfume. No noise. Just blank walls, pale sunlight, a faint mark on the floor where the suitcase had scuffed the wood. I opened the window. Curtains fluttered. The air felt honest again. I stepped out to sweep the front step and saw it plain cardboard. No label, no tape, just folded shut. I looked left, right. No car, no footsteps, no shadow down the street. I brought it inside. Set it on the kitchen counter. Opened it. Inside a single house key. Below it a piece of paper torn from a yellow notepad. "I'm sorry, Mom." And no explanation, no excuses. Just the weight of 7 words he hadn't been able to say aloud. I stood for a long time with the note in my hand. The air in the kitchen felt heavier, not because of anger, but the kind of tired that only comes after the damage is already done. I didn't cry. There wasn't anything left in me for that. I folded the note once, then again. Pressed the crease down flat. I walked to the back room, opened the desk drawer where Michael's documents lived, trust clause bank slips, old birthday cards, the photo of us on the porch. I slid the note underneath the last page. Let it rest there under the ink and signatures and protections we built before either of us knew we'd need them. I left the key in the box. Closed the lid. Carried it to the shed. Set it on the highest shelf next to the toolbox. Let it sit. Back inside, the house felt unchanged. No footsteps, no arguing, no slammed doors. I brewed new coffee, not out of habit. Just because the silence felt clean again, I sipped it, standing at the window watching the breeze shake the oak tree out front. Leaves fell, not many. Just enough to mark the season. I thought of the way Evan used to run through the yard when he was little, always barefoot, always too fast. I thought about the last Thanksgiving we had before Michael passed. Evan sat on the floor, passing the gravy boat like he was 12 again. That was the year he offered to help with the dishes without being asked. I drank the rest of the cup slowly, washed it clean, set it back on the shelf. I flipped the switch. The percolator hissed. Steam curled against the window. The house stayed quiet. No doors opened. No footsteps. No one asking what time breakfast was. I stood barefoot, hands resting on the counter, listening to the hum of a home that had finally shut its mouth around me in peace. The mug sat on the stove, same one Michael had bought as a joke years ago. Chipped at the rim, handle worn smooth. Still the owner. I poured the coffee. No sugar, no cream. Just heat strength and bitter truth. Carried it to the table. Sat in the same chair they once told me I didn't belong in. Sunlight sliced through the blinds. Lit up the floorboards, the drawer handles the framed photo I'd refused to put away. I drank slowly. The house smelled like polish and brewed beans. Not perfume, not aftershave. Not takeout containers with someone else's name on them. Mine. The calendar on the wall flipped to a clean week. I crossed off the last square and didn't write anything in the next one. The silence didn't ask questions. It didn't push back. I let it stretch, let it settle, let it stay.